Good evening, I'm Anna Jabłońska and welcome to Poland Daily. President Andrzej Duda has vetoed the new European Parliament electoral legislation. According to him, the new law would promote major political parties while discriminating against the smaller ones. The presidential veto was accepted with a great approval of the latter group, especially by the agrarian party PSL and the right-wing populist Kukiz 15 movement.
The anticipated veto of the new European Parliament electoral legislation was signed today. President Andrzej Duda justified his decision with the issue of proportionality. The new legislation would increase the electoral threshold from 5% to even 20% in some districts. That would in fact result in a two-party system, excluding smaller groups. Should the political system in Poland ever change to suit just two parties, I would prefer it to be done democratically and through natural process. I want to add that I have nothing against working on a new European Parliament electoral legislation, as I believe that the procedure of voting should be simplified. However, the spokesperson for the Law and Justice Party, Beata Mazurek, informed that the ruling party will not try to alter the proposed electoral legislation in such a way that the president might sign it in the future. Furthermore, she added that the president's decision is respected by the party, but that the ruling party is still convinced that this legislation was necessary. I do not think that the proposed changes would break any democratic rules. I do, however, respect the decision made by the president. Members of parliament of the Kukiz 15 movement feared the possibility of the parliament denying the veto. Nevertheless, that is highly unlikely, as for that to happen, 3/5 of all MPs would have to be in favour of the proposed legislation. I will only rest easy once the politicians of the Civic Platform declare that they won't oppose the president's veto. Politicians of the ruling party say they will not insist on forcing their version of the legislation. It seems likely that the old set of rules will be used during next year's European Parliament elections.
The famous actor Liam Neeson, known from The Schindler's List and the first part of Star Wars, has appeared in an educational video produced by the Polish National Foundation in which he talks about the 98th anniversary of the Battle of Warsaw. Thanks to the Polish victory over the Red Army on the outskirts of Warsaw, Poland defended its recently regained independence and Europe avoided an invasion by the communist forces. The video clip, published online on August 15th, has already been viewed more than 100,000 times.
Europe was on the verge of a communist revolution in the summer of 1920. In the previous year, communist republics, which were toppled after a great effort, had been declared in Hungary and a number of regions in Germany. If the Red Army would have been able to pass through Poland and link up with the communist working masses in Western Europe, Europe's fate could have been sealed for decades, if not centuries, to come. Instead, the Polish army routed the Red Army in the Battle of Warsaw, one of the most important yet often forgotten military battles in European history.
On August the 15th, we mark the anniversary of the Battle of Warsaw, the free world's first major victory over communism. Poles refer to this victory as the miracle on the Vistula, and even now, 98 years after the battle, it seems nothing short of a miracle. Newly independent Poland faced a formidable foe. Vladimir Lenin was ready to see his Bolshevik revolution spread beyond Russia's borders. He was confident that history was on his side and the Red Army invincible. But he was stopped. The victory came on the very day Poles were celebrating the Feast of the Assumption. Watching the Soviet advance, they prayed for divine intercession. Against staggering odds, through sheer courage, faith, and a centuries-old determination to be free, Poland triumphed over brute force and defeated the Soviet aggressor on the outskirts of Warsaw.
Yesterday, the Spanish Coast Guard intercepted 524 migrants on 12 dinghies while they were trying to make their way across the Gibraltar Strait from Morocco to Spain. The migrants were taken to the port of Algeciras in the southern region of Andalusia. The region is struggling to cope with the large influx of illegal migrants. More than 25,000 have arrived so far this year.
After the migrants disembarked, the police took them to a temporary reception center where the authorities will try to figure out the identities of the newcomers. According to the law, the migrants should be processed within 72 hours, something that currently rarely happens. In recent weeks, the authorities in Andalusia have been overwhelmed by the numbers of arriving migrants. They've had problems with providing the necessary amount of blankets, mattresses, clothes and hygiene articles. At moments, the authorities have asked local residents to donate water and basic food items. The worsening conditions in the temporary reception centres are increasing the number of breakouts from the centres. Recently, 62 migrants escaped from a warehouse in Cadiz, which had been turned into a temporary shelter. Since the new socialist government took power in early June, it has been sending out signals that Spain is embracing mass immigration. The increasing number of migrants will likely boost the popularity of the Spain's far-right party Vox, which has splintered off from the main conservative party Partido Popular in early 2014. Recent election polls show that the party will have a chance to enter parliament in the 2020 election. It seems as if the European immigration crisis will keep redrawing the political map of Europe for years to come.
Yesterday, President Donald Trump revoked the security clearance of former CIA Director John Brennan after accusing him of using his access to classified information in order to sow division and chaos about the Trump administration. Trump announced the decision in a statement from him read by White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders at her daily news briefing.
Historically, former heads of intelligence and law enforcement agencies have been allowed to retain access to classified information after their government service so that they can consult with their successors regarding matters about which they may have special insights and as a professional courtesy. Neither of these justifications supports Mr. Brennan's continued access to classified information. First, at this point in my administration, any benefits that senior officials might glean from consultations with Mr. Brennan are now outweighed by the risks posed by his erratic conduct and behavior. Second, that conduct and behavior has tested and far exceeded the limits of any professional courtesy that may have been due to him. Mr. Brennan has a history that calls into question his objectivity and credibility.
Mr. Brennan has served in various high-ranking government positions, notably as the director of the CIA, Homeland Security Advisor, and before that, director of the National Counterterrorism Center. He has recently made a number of very political and controversial statements about President Trump.
More broadly, the issue of Mr. Brennan's security clearance raises larger questions about the practice of former officials maintaining access to our nation's most sensitive secrets long after their time in government has ended. Such access is particularly inappropriate when former officials have transitioned into highly partisan positions and seek to use real or perceived access to sensitive information to validate their political attacks.
Trump also announced that he is reviewing the security clearances of several other former ranking government officials with a view toward revoking them.
I am evaluating action with respect to the following individuals: James Clapper, James Comey, Michael Hayden, Sally Yates, Susan Rice, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and Bruce Orr.
Thank you for watching Poland Daily. Coming up next, Poland Daily Weather. Good night.